One more series to close out today's HGC matches, and it's one I'm excited about. It's Even in Death versus Roll20. Dren, any initial thoughts about this match?
A lot of this for me is how is Roll20 going to perform, and does Even in Death still show positive signs? Yes, they got a win last week. They ended up winning a game. But I feel like Roll20 is a much better team and not going to be dropping one here to them. So it's, can Even in Death get that upset against a team that is more of the big league, the big three that we had out of phase number 1? And then it's still going to be, how is Goku integrated? The drafting, I think, is a huge thing, and the hero pools between Goku and Glaurung for today, because I feel like if they're ever going to show that they've accepted this new role type deal, it's against a team like Even in Death.
Now, we may even see them trying some different things since they know they are up against Even in Death. But I have heard a lot of respect from the members of Roll20 toward Even in Death when they're looking at things like scrim results against them. Let's check out the standings before we get into our rookies versus one of the big leagues. Look at that, another sports ball reference. Nicely done, me.
Pat on the back.
Tempo Storm now at 2-2. So they are slowly rising out of the depths of last weekend. They were sort of thrown in the deep end against both Gale Force and No Tomorrow. You heard Sam's thoughts on it. He still believes, and we still believe, that they'll be able to rise up. But Roll20 also wants to continue to rise up into the top 3, so they need this victory over Even in Death. Even in Death, like Team Naventix, still waiting for their first series win.
Yeah, it's a struggle there. Again, Even in Death was able to get one win. I believe it was against Superstars, if I'm not crazy. Last week here. They do have, honestly, Even in Death is insane for me to judge from like watching their games and how good they actually are, because they do some things for only a couple of seconds, but when they do it better than I feel like every other team in North America, but it's just like fractions of the game. So then I suddenly go like, is this team going to just spark this and suddenly like just grow faster than any other team I've ever seen in North America? Or is this just kind of like, it's a bit of a fluke that we see those kind of moments from them? And so that's always what I'm attending to when watching them play.
Yeah, they show a lot of promise in things like their shot calling, their drafting, and so that is the main reason why I'm so excited to see this series and is see how much they've been able to develop in the last week. Let's hear from the teams themselves, Even in Death and Roll20.
Winning that game against Superstars definitely felt good, but winning one game and losing the sets, the game doesn't really matter because the set's all that matters. And we're glad we ended that losing streak, but we're looking to take those sets, not just the games. The match coming up against Roll20, we're feeling pretty confident that we've got some good strategies against them. In the past, they've been a really dominant team. I think they're going through some changes right now that might give us an opportunity to expose some weaknesses in their synergy. As far as plans, we feel really strong that we've got some pretty good meta compositions that'll make the games in our favor. So we're really looking forward to the games this weekend.
Even in Death is a rookie team that had a rough start to the season. Their drafts have been fairly standard, and they do have the potential of being a stronger team. Hal's transition to support been performing really well because he used to be a melee main, and he's still able to pull off a lot of things that even the supports in HGC can't. And Lutano, it's interesting seeing him play. He kind of brings almost a breath of fresh new play when he plays the game. I think that as of this moment, there is no team that shows decisively that they deserve the #1 spot in NA. A lot of teams have weaknesses within their draft and play that need to be fixed in order to become a stronger team. As of this moment, both No Tomorrow and GFE have the best spot to take #1.
An interview coming in before No Tomorrow and Gale Force esports played, so we now do see that Gale Force esports is at the top, but I think it is still very interesting and very true to hear Goku talk about the fact that there is no perfection at the top of North America. Everybody is beatable, everyone shows weakness, but everyone has a lot of strengths that they've been able to bring to the table, and it makes our fight for Western Clash spots so incredibly interesting. Roll20 is still in the fight, Tempo Storm's there too, but No Tomorrow is the wrench in everybody's plans.
Yeah, No Tomorrow essentially just took... It's weird because, again, with like the B-Step disband, then you bring Even in Death, everybody kind of notched up a slot, but then also with No Tomorrow doing as well as they are, now it took everybody down to where teams that we would not... naturally, we gave everybody a slot up and then we returned it, so it's like, oh, it should kind of balance out a little bit there, but it's not the case. The impact that they're having at the top is huge because of the teams they've been able to beat, and now it's going to be... It really comes down to, can No Tomorrow hold that slot, and if so... which of those top 3 that we assumed were going to be the ones going is the one that gets knocked out. And granted, I don't think that this is the series where we go, oh, that's it, Roll20 is the one that's fallen out. But it's just, it is crazy that it is gotten to that point, that it is the only team I feel comfortable assuming to go to the Western Clash is Gale Force, and everything past that point is I have no idea.
And it's not only happening in North America. That's same thing is happening in Europe. So Phase 2 has been a really fun time, a fun start to our halfway point of the year. But let's get into this series, Roll20 versus Even in Death. Let's kick things off with the Battleground pool and see where we're going for game number 1. Even in Death has chosen Sky Temple, and that is no surprise. As Drud mentioned, Sky Temple is the one game that Even in Death were able to take off of Superstars. And actually, it was the one game they were able to take off of No Tomorrow in the Crucible. So it has been an old standard for Even in Death. Yeah,
it's nice that they're going to take us there. And they're also one of the only teams in North America that prioritizes the map almost above the first pick slot. You know, it's just keeping things as consistent as possible, and being able to choose the map really helps a growing team like Even in Death. I'm excited. I feel like it's nice knowing it is their best map, but then I go, like, again, it's usually skirmish focus, and Roll20's team fight might be one of the strongest things about them. It's a little unfair because the more that time's gone on, I feel like Roll20 wins games more often through macro for small experience advantages, and then relies on their team fight to truly lock things down.
Even in Death showcased some fantastic decision-making, though, on Sky Temple. Multiple times they were behind and were able to make really cool decisions quickly that enabled them to catch up so that they could eventually win team fights against Superstars to get the win. So this is a great battleground to kick things off between these two teams. Roll20 have been shying away from their Medivh a little bit, but granted, I wanted to talk about this, so I'm glad Even in Death did ban it. The games that they refused to pick in their last series, Dahaka was the ban. Medivh was still up. It was versus Superstars, a team that obviously knows him with Yoda. But Dahaka was the one that was banned, and the only time Roll20 picked Medivh is when they could get both Medivh and Dahaka. And I believe you've talked about the importance of having both. Yeah, they really enjoy having that kind of mobility and lockdown between the two. Dahaka struggles at getting on top of the targets to make sure that he is effective. And it's very nice to be able to have that portal to go in and execute. It's not as straightforward as the Diablo that you see with Justin, but they don't mind whenever they can get the Malfury, and Dahaka was the two, but now the Malf's dropped, it's probably a little bit more emphasis onto the Dahaka. But he's taken away. The draft, you know, pretty quick through this. I would expect to see a Tracer pick up for Roll20 in their 2-3 here, just because we see the Illidan on the other side. The Tassador is already locked in, but they might wait a little bit longer. Even in Death, almost certainly, if they can get it, will add Vala Ariel to what they already have. They like having the combo of Vala, a second support, and Ariel, and then having the Illidan with it. They feel like an Illidan is a strength of theirs too, their Illidan play, and that was the type of composition they had that allowed them to win on Sky. But Roll20 realized this. They recognize it. They're taking Ariel away, pairing it with the Tassadar too. They have a lot of options for who ends up being the battery of that. It also shows just a drop of Task Tracer on outside of those specific maps for most teams. It's still a possibility, but again, it's like, that's one of those things where if it's really that high impact, it's almost inevitably going to be picked there or it's going to be banned out. So it shows Task Tracer is a BOE only thing, I feel like, now for North America, at least that high of consistency, and it's not nearly as relevant elsewhere, but everything else for Roll20 is sticking to what we would expect. They were the first team to bust out the high Task, and they were one of the first teams to have the higher Arthas priority. It's teams like Gale Force and Tempo that seem to be matching them. Even in Death bans out the Cassia. Cassia, we've seen paired with the double support quite often. She's a really good hyper carry to make sure you have enough DPS when committing to the double. And the blind is pretty annoying to deal with if you have an Illidan. Considering what is left for Roll20, it is possible that we end up seeing Glaurung on something like a Lunara or a Vala again. But Roll20 are banning away Abathur, so no Abathur Illidan pairing, no double Illidan on the core, Cheese being able to get keeps, that kind of strategy for Even in Death. Anything jump out to you now for Even in Death now that Ariel and Vala is off the table? I mean, I'm still trying to figure out Even in Death's overall playstyle in terms of priority. This is the second series that we managed to see them on this patch specifically. I mean, I immediately go like, well, what do we see with most Anubarak and Illidan comps? Something like the Lunara to be able to enable would be ideal, but you obviously don't have the Ariel to be able to back that up for that hope, so it's a less
positive thing, and then you've already got the Arthas onto the other side, so it would be more, I would go for just team fight. Greymane was the first thing that came to my mind, but the Falstad, something that's popping up here and there. Now another team that we see shows it. I'm still torn on the hero in terms of when we see him, when we don't. I was surprised originally when we saw such a strong drop-off from Falstad, but now it's not even so much the heroes that are good against him and being able to stop him and pressure him. It's just flat out globals other than Dahaka don't have, Dahaka and Abathur just don't have the same impact in the game like they used to.
I'm fearing for that Falstad, depending on what Roll20 wants to pick here. Because there is still a possibility of Task Tracer.
It's still left up. That's a good
put
point.
Goku on Tassadar, Tracer played by Glaurung, and then Prismaticism is left with being the battery. Although we tend to see Prismaticism play more of the mages lately. Oh. I was not expecting Stitches there.
Yeah, in that rotation. That is leaving Tracer as the solo DPS. Glaurung there's going to have a lot of pressure. This is, man, having the Arthas Stitches together is one of my favorite double warriors of the current meta, so I don't dislike that. The fact that they have, you know, double support, Task Tracer, and an Arthas to slow things down, it makes it a lot better. But it's also one of those things where it is a little bit light. It's putting a lot of pressure on the Tracer to be effective. So much so I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually just a Brightwing, just to ensure that Tracer, the only consistent DPS, is removed. Granted, Arthas Stitches have a lot of damage for a frontline normally. I don't think the Brightwing is that safe, but it's one of the few arguments where with Brightwing becoming more popular, I can see it being made here.
Uther has surprisingly made it all the way to the end, so that is available if Even in Death wants to go a more safer, more meta route with their Greymane, Illidan having Divine Shield for that. They're going to pick Malfurion here.
Malfurion has been such a strange hero for NA. You know, he's only had, I think, like 4 to 5 games, it feels like, after his rework that we've seen. And he started for a while being paid attention to with the Stitches compositions, but then now it seems like he's kind of like, only if we have to. Now you had the chance to go to a different direction, and even in Death's like, nah, we're going to still drop the Malfurion. I'm not against it. I think Malf has been just thrown to the wayside for some reason. I don't know why. He is still the only other support that has a reliable hard CC starting out very early into the game. Brightwing's the one of the few, but he can still heal. Twilight Dream is still crazy. I don't know why we've seen such a severe drop-off. I mean, it's obvious you lost Cleanse. It's going to hurt. But once Uther's gone, most supports struggle and don't have Cleanse. So, like, Malf should be, I thought, the next go-to. This one, I would argue the Rhaegar for the Illidan, you know.
Or Uther.
Yeah, but I can understand also wanting the lockdown to be able to make those things happen. What I'm trying to say is I'm not surprised to see Malfurion pop up. Not the area I expected to see him, but I'm glad that at least even in Death shows that they're comfortable bringing out that hero, because NA is just absolutely neglected Malfurion.
Yeah, it is interesting. There is so much writing on Glaurung to do the damage as Tracer because of the composition that Roll20 has drafted in a way that a Divine Shield or an Ancestral Healing maybe would negate the Pulse Bomb, and then that would maybe be it. But at the same time, if Roll20 looks damage light to Even in Death, and they feel like they can keep things up with Malfurion, then the Twilight Dream is dissuading a kind of heavy dive in from the Double Warrior as well as the Tracer. One
thing we don't get to talk about very often, because we don't see it really, the Malfurion come up even, there is an option to move into just a harassment version of Malfurion here, and into very low health pool heroes that don't have a lot of sustain. It's really annoying. You can poke Tassadar and Tracer and Ariel really, really hard with
Hindering
the Malfurion.
Moonfire.
Yeah, and the slow can force her to pop a lot of dashes that she wouldn't necessarily want to use before. That was what I expected to see once we saw the rework of Malfurion. His utility is insane. Yes, he doesn't have the cleanse, but beyond that, he's still got a lot of cool tools. I don't know if Even in Death has enough, but at least we get to see it again. I think it's cool.
This is an exciting draft for game number 1, so let's get into it. Sky Temple between Even in Death and Roll20.
It's going to start here on the blue side. Once again, it is Even in Death. Lutano is going to be playing the Falstad. We have Hao on the Malfurion. Frozen X is going to be playing the Greymane. We have Homicidal on the Illidan, and Nubarak was played by Battery.
And in the red is Roll20. With Glaurung playing Tracer, Stitches played by Jesting. Up next, Arthas played by Goku. We have Tassadar played by Prismaticism, and finally support player Buds playing Ariel.
Really happy to see in the setup that Goku's on the Arthas. I was afraid that that was going to be Prismaticism on the Arthas and that he would be the Tassadar. I feel like Roll20 in the long run is the more that we see him committing to that off warrior, always on a melee, the better it is for Roll20. Granted, this draft, Glaurung got a range that he felt comfortable on, was a hero before he moved to this range flex role. So it feels a little bit cheating in terms of have they totally accepted their roles, but at least in this game, it feels like it shows that it could be a thing.
Prismaticism does play a rare Tassadar, but it's another hero that's shared, as Drud was mentioning, between Goku and Prismaticism. But Prismat does it well, definitely. Statistically, has done really well. He's played a couple of games on it already and has yet to lose with the hero. And with Roll20 being such a dominant team, likely that they can win this game, but I'm excited to see what Even in Death can do to try to get a win on this battleground, on Sky Temple in particular, with the draft they have. Because they've got a little bit of a lot of things. They have the Illidan that they so like. They have a global with Falstad to try to soak.
A little bit of a lot of things. I like that. Just a smidge of everything, you know?
Well-rounded.
Regen Master was the choice for a new bracket. One, understandable, considering there's not that big of magic damage on the other side. You could, a more consistent magic damage, I think, would be the better way to put that one there. Obviously, Pulse Bomb can do a lot of work, and having that sustained HP to let Tracer have one less target to focus on is going to be nice for Battery. But it will take a while. Sky Temple's not necessarily dropping globes left and right.
Do you anticipate any talent adjustments from Even in Death to deal with a Pulse Bomb? I'm trying to consider myself what changes might come in. Sixth Sense potentially for Illidan 13.
I mean, Greymane, I'm trying to think if he has the option to even do anything directly with Spell Armor, and even so, it's usually not good enough to make up for something else. How is receiving the pressure of Glaurung here up on top. Frozen, though, he's trying to get an even trade between the two. The recall lets Glaurung find the Malfurion pick, and that is now first blood for Roll20.
So it is Tracer who for now is going to hold on to the crown of Ariel. Stitches will clear out the rest of the shots in the top for now. The final few shots in the mid going over to Even in Death. So trying to keep up with the shots in this first phase, not get too far behind. But the bigger news that Even in Death are getting behind in is experience. Already Roll20 getting a level lead 2 minutes and 45 seconds into this game.
Yeah, but Even in Death here is pressured out up on bottom. Glaurung sniffing it out, force the recall. Glaurung has nothing left. One more dash is all it is. And that should be a kill now for Even in Death. Great job getting that punishment. Prismat's caught out. He's got one dimensional shift. The knockup's up in 2 seconds. He's going down 2. Nope, got the juke. Baited everyone to the wrong direction, but now we see Even in Death's going to try and take advantage of this and actually invade these giants.
We've got the invade. Stitches is coming in. Prismaticism's actually in trouble.
No dimensional
once again.
shift.
Helping hand. The Lightning Rod seals the deal. Even in Death get a second kill. Speaking of the Lightning Rod, Static Shield coming in as another way of helping to deal with the burst of Tracer.
Yeah, that was such a good job there from Even in Death finding those punishment, but they didn't end up committing to the camp, and they actually let those giants on bottom give up. This was one of those glimpses I expected to see out of Even in Death. You know, that was something where it's like, we don't expect this out of them, and then you're like, okay, I see you working, and then you're like, wow, these guys turned it up. I would have expected immediate rotation down the front wall and take out the front wall for free. They take the safe cycle. They're going to for the Knights, the traditional route here. But it's a little, I feel like they aren't gaining as much as they could have. But again, this is a very new team, and it's more of just, was this going to be one of those positive moments of greatness from them?
Well, they do have a 4-man rotation here up in the top, along to back up those bruisers. So again, they have a lot of people up here, but they're not soaking all the lanes. As you can see, Anubarak just now going into the mid to deal with that. And so Even in Death is continually behind in experience, but they're trying to make up for that by taking out some structures where they can potentially. That was an earlier bruiser, so that won't be pushing along while the second temple is activated in the bottom. but at least the team can leave Falstad up in the top, and it made sure to get the pressure off of their own fort, which had gotten rather low from Roll20 getting that top temple.
Another thing to know with Roll20, it's going to be the Icy Talon into Rune Tap.
There you
for
go.
Goku.
The Dread Arthas build.
The Dread Arthas build. I've been hyping it up since legitimately the rework of Arthas, but now, like 6 months later.
We had it from this team as well.
Yeah.
Justin picked it one time on this map, and when Arthas just sits on the boss point and is duking it out over the boss, it came in handy.
Yeah, we don't see the synergy with the Kalas there for, level 4 from Prismaticism, but it's going to be one beefy Arthas if you let him get those auto attacks in. Rune Tap is such a great defensive tool. Used to be the actual standard, but it also used to heal about twice as much as it does now. So you tell me if that makes a lot of sense. Shots here converted for Roll20. They're just gaining slight experience advantage. And right now it's even in death waiting for the 10 game.
They are. They've got their double global-ish. Illidan doesn't have the hunt yet, but they have Falstad and Illidan up in the top trying to take down that fort. This is going to force a rotation from Roll20. Tassadar specifically, who can shield the fort, trying to throw some damage out to Lutano to scare him away and keep the fort alive. Roll20 not only defend the fort, but they were also able to get the rest of the shots, get the fort on bottom, and get heroic abilities a full level ahead of their opponents.
Full level and structural advantage in all fronts. Roll20 is winning this game right now. So much so they're going to back out and start into this boss. This is one of the few maps where taking an early boss you can make it justified because it typically draws aggro towards bottom, which leads to a free cycle onto the mid-keep, or fort, excuse me. But even in death is punishing and getting that fort up on top. The 10's going to be identified. If anybody moved over, which they won't, it's going to be a free boss now for Roll20.
Oh man, and Gust is even up too, but Falstad and Illidan still up in the top. Boss grabbed. Roll22, love it. Got Force Wall as well as Gorge, so they're going to be trying to get that isolation with the combo of those abilities. Plus Force Wall will be able to help in case Justin needs help with the disengage. Even Goku too, those front lines that aren't as mobile.
I really like that. When you look at Roll20's comp, you go, do they lack damage? And they're still willing to take the Force Wall. That was the conversation we had just a couple broadcasts ago about what is the trade-off? Is it worth doing that? And you know, with the Tracer only, I do question that might not be worth it, but if you have anybody else whatsoever, I feel like Force Wall is such a undervalued heroic choice in North America.
The one team that doesn't immediately freak me out when you see a lesser damage composition is Roll20, because they have just been running this type of composition for so long now. Compositions that we look at them and say, oh, they might be light on damage, and then they always are able to make it work, or at least most of the time make it work, because their focus fire is good. They are together as a unit when they go after kills.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's just that these guys know how to work as a team better than most. At least when looking at the actual execution of a team fight dynamic, they very much do, and that is why the Medivh Diablo is such an intimidating combo to have together. But we see Battery up on the side. They're looking for a flank. Even in death, may want to take this fight, as Illidan's still up on top collecting those shots. Prismac comes down, reveals Battery, and suddenly Roll20 is the one trying to take it.
20's there, but even in death disengage. The top shot's still going. Roll20 recognizes this. How long does even in death stay on this point? There goes the hunt, jumps right onto Justin.
Gust, Dream.
Nice.
They've got a lot. They've got a kill, and that is the most important thing. Glorong triple dashing right on out. Lutano has got the kill. Now the reveal onto the Cocoon target. Can Ariel make it out? Justin's just getting bodied up there by Homicidal, and that was flat clean from even in death.
So pretty. From the Cocoon on Ariel so that she couldn't be the savior, to the Gust into Dream combo of even in death. With that fight getting 4 kills, even in death have caught up in experience. They get the rest of the shots in this temple. They can even potentially make the rotation and are doing so with the new Barak to get down to the temple and could start evening out these structures.
I just want to say that I'm very happy that we saw that, because I feel like now everybody remembers why Malfurion is the monster that he is. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Gust setup was absolutely delicious, beautifully done from Roll20, but still, it just look like, how do you stop this fight once it starts? Once the Malfurion drops it. Okay, everything going to plan. Now the fight. Now what do? What's the counterplay for those 3? The answer is nothing.
No.
There is literally 0. And that's why I've been like, why? Like, don't get me wrong, I understand the drop in value, but like, he's gone to non-existent in North America. We take Karazim above him in almost all cases. So crazy. And I'm glad even Death's busting out and making an argument, man.
And it also punishes the Stitches getting gorged. There's no future bile to try to drop, get the movement speed, slow things down,
He's just
allow
dead.
the team to reset. Yes, Arthas has the slows for that, trying to do the same thing, but Stitches is going to be a target. You've got the force wall. It's not going to really help you too much if you're just right in the middle of everything. So Even in Death gets that decisive team fight victory and pulls ahead in game number 1 versus Roll20 esports.
I love that little force wall trick there. Just to keep the, I mean, it has almost a just useless impact, but just zoning off the Knights, making sure they can't get any free damage. I love little tips and tricks like that whenever we can get them. Prismat flexing it out, but look at Roll20. They're kind of just sharking out here, looking for any member of Even in Death on their own. Even in Death, though, they're not risking anything. You see the rotation so clumped as well. Both teams just not wanting to let that one member get caught out. So much so, even Illidan's not showing in a lane.
Goku.
He's giving up, it looks like.
Yeah, it's scary for Even in Death. They would love to have somebody split soaking, but the lanes are fairly pushed. They want to get 16, but they don't want to lose anybody to a hook gorge combination. Arthas there too. If someone gets hooked and gorge, it's just going to be really hard for anybody that gets caught like that from Even in Death to get away. Especially because of the follow-up. But if you've got something like a friend or foe, if you've got the team together from Even in Death, then the escape becomes maybe more doable for them.
Just constantly trying to find the opponents here. Both these teams are terrified to move out. I'm going to be honest, that shows how intimidated Roll20 is after that last fight. They've been kind of just off doing their own thing. Glarong dashed into 4 targets over that middle shrine. 4 of them. He was willing to double E up in there. And like, I mean, that's a bit of his role, yes, but it was boastfully confident. And now they are barely willing to soak a side lane. Then they're going to posture the boss, knowing that Even in Death's closing in on 15 because they're panicking, worrying about the 16 spike, and now they managed to get it with Illidan. And things, they aren't terrible for Roll20, but they're definitely not what they expected to find themselves in with how successful they were in the first couple minutes.
The best news is that because the waves were pushed toward Roll20, they've actually caught up in experience. They're just about to get 16, Hook goes out, doesn't find its mark, Plutano is fine. Glarong jumping in, throwing out damage where he can, scaring, poking for holes in Even in Death, wherever they may be. Illidan on the top can hunt in if necessary, if Even in Death is forced into a fight. In the bottom, though, there are Giants pushing against the keep of Even in Death, and there, a target has been found.
Pulse bomb lands. There's no way Battery can't go down here, but he does. Now Glarong, he received the hunt there from Homicidal, but it is not going to matter. Prismat dropping the force wall. Can they get a pick here? Detainment strike? No. Friend or foe is enough to at least buy time. Nice hook. Frozen X. He's down 2. That's 3 picks here for Roll20. That was very greedy, I feel like, when it came to the decision-making on the side of Even in Death there. The fact that they were willing to keep the Illidan up on top and argue that they have the global. At this stage of the game, your opponent's not afraid of forcing a 5 versus 4. They have about 3-second time advantage, and with a composition like a Tracer comp, wants to win the fight very fast, and you allow them to start a fight 5 versus 4, you were pretty much asking for it, essentially, at that point. Nice punishment from Roll20.
Yeah, Roll20 knew they could get a kill before the hunt came in from Even in Death. They took out Battery. Now Roll20 are going to use their quick rotations to get a boss to steal the Giants from Even in Death before Even in Death is able to respawn with everybody now. And that bottom keep took a lot of damage because the Giants were pushing for so long before someone from Even in Death could get back to defend.
Yeah, and it wasn't like there was any rotational advantage or shot advantage either. I mean, both mid and top were equal value for both sides. Roll20, though, with the boss distracting the members of Even in Death on bottom. In fact, pay attention towards mid. Even in Death is going to go for the all-in fight here. The Gus, Dream, does not go off. That's delayed now with that Gorge. And look at the pressure. They're onto a new Barak. Pulse Bomb pressured, but he survives. Stitches, meanwhile, just deleted.
Oh, those roots were so amazing from How. Just enough time for Battery to get away from Glarong. Now the Ice Block comes out, forcing Glarong to recall. Battery and How are still there. Nobody's died from Even in Death, but they did lose their bottom keep. Roll20 staying strong despite losing Justing.
Yeah, now they're going to move. Oh, man. Can Battery force this? Homicidal. There's the first Q. He's on the Arthas. Not maybe the target he wants to be on, but he's not going to stop the chase. Howling Blast got the snare. Now Gloron getting stuck by the force wall. Prismat drops it, but they want this so desperately. Curse Bullet with the disengage, and now Gloron turns it around. Twilight Dream is going to be used, but Gloron falls.
And so does Goku, as Homicidal was ruthless chasing him down, even using the hunt just to make sure he could get that kill. Even in Death are not done, and there's no fort to retreat to here. Battery goes after Prismaticism, who has to burn his dimensional shift while the rest of the team deals with Buds. A long respawn timer now, 60 seconds until Ariel is back.
And we find ourselves with a 20-second difference between Arthas, Tracer, and then the Ariel later on. So now there's 2 power spikes for Even in Death. First is going to be this 30 seconds where they have a 2-man advantage over their opponent's Battery. Starting to focus on the keep. They're may even look for the core, but again, that's 20 seconds. Illidan goes in. Homicidal wants this. They want it. Do they have the Gust?
Gorge.
They have that.
Gust.
Ooh, that's not maybe the Gust they wanted.
Nope, Battery is going to get dropped right on top of the keep. He goes down. We've got 3 onto the core. Homicidal and Lutano, the big damage dealers here to take out this core. It's at 85%. The shielding's here for Prismaticism, and he is just wrecking through the health bars of Even in Death along with the core. Poor Hao gets left at the altar. He goes down. Homicidal makes it out, but Even in Death dealt down to 72% of the core health.
Yeah, Roll20 was not afraid there. Actually, if you watch Justin after the hook in the Gorge, he started his back knowing that there was no way they touched the core, and then he was like halfway, just stopped it afterwards and was like, I'll walk it back. It's fine, you know, whatever. They broke through the shielding. Maybe a little bit more damage than he was expecting early on, but they were very confident that that game was not over, not yet at least. And now Roll20 is looking to punish. They find themselves with the equal advantage the other direction. Gloron got the hunt. There's pressure onto him. Homicidal slowed. Nice job wearing the hook there for Frozen X, because Gloron needs to go down if they're going to have a shot, and they don't.
Homicidal's been killed. It's down to Frozen X as Battery respawns, and he's just a little bit too late with the burrow charge to save his Greymane. All eyes from Roll20 are now on the core, gorging a new Barak just to make sure that he leaves his damage dealers alone. Roll20 esports, even though they sustain some damage on their core, will turn around and take out the core of Even in Death to win Game 1.
Game 1 here to Roll20, but definitely not the fashion they were hoping for. Showing moments of, you know, just allowing Even in Death to get the upper hand, starting with that boss play through the mid. And I do want to say that's like one of those moments where I feel like Even in Death does things better than a lot of other teams in NA, which is still surprising for me to say. But then that's where you saw even Roll20 get punished. Is like the fact that every time we see a boss taken in NA right now on Sky, it's just like, we'll push a different lane and they're not going to do anything. They're going to clear the boss for free and they're never going to mess with us. And they just go, well, the boss sucks right now. It doesn't do that much damage. Why don't we just fight you instead? Immediately turn the fight, and Roll20 goes, yeah, we weren't expecting that. These are small things. They aren't mind-bogglingly hard either. But Even in Death is the only team doing it, and other teams are just expecting the opponents to do the same thing over and over and over again, and that allows Even in Death to get windows. It's very strange, but they keep doing it. It keeps showing up in their games.
Roll20 definitely did not expect the way that Even in Death engaged once they had their heroic abilities either. You could tell that they were completely taken unawares by the Gust into Twilight Dream. But as a counterpoint, Roll20 also adapted to that very quickly. They never really let that same type of thing happen again. When the Gust came out at that mid-keep, they made sure to gorge Twilight Dream, gorge Malfurion, so he couldn't follow up immediately with the Twilight Dream. So they had quick adaptation to make sure that there was never that big of a devastating loss for them, but I definitely think maybe they were underestimating their opponents just a smidge there on Sky Temple.
But again, that is the best map, the map that we've seen Even in Death get upsets over Superstars and No Tomorrow way back at the Crucible. So now it's going to be, you know, can they get a win on a different map for the first time in all of HGC North America, or in fact is Roll20 going to walk away with 2 more games?
And Even in Death doesn't just only pick first pick either, like a lot of our other teams upon losing a game. They are more willing, like Team Niventic, to fluctuate depending on if they feel like they need to pick a battleground so that they can get consistent practice on the same battlegrounds, ones that they prefer. We know that they generally trend toward, with the exception of Sky Temple, more of the smaller battlegrounds,
yeah,
like Tomb and Dragon.
Yeah, that's where they go all day. They adore some of the smaller maps and being able to open them up through the wave clear, though they don't always commit to the wave clear, even though they enjoy those smaller maps. They have a really unique approach. There's actually, now that I think about it, I should do better about trying to get into the brain of Battery and the rest of those members, because they really do kind of have a totally different angle that they take on North America with. And granted, you know, they're sitting at the bottom, but a lot of that's due to experience, I feel like, not because of their unique approach.
Yeah, you can tell even in that game, getting behind level 4 to 5, that there is definitely something to be said about macro game. They know that they need to improve on that, and they're working to improve in those strides specifically. And we have the battleground for the next game, so let's